Love makes you blind, but silence makes you powerless. For 2 years, I lived in a story that wasn't mine. A story written and controlled by the man I loved, Daniel. To everyone else, he was charming, loyal, the perfect boyfriend who always said the right things. But behind closed doors, he was the author of my reality, rewriting my truth to make himself the hero and me the villain. I met him at a charity event, where his charisma filled the room. He worked in media. Confident, clever, the kind of man who could make words sound like music. I admired him for his passion, for the way he talked about honesty and storytelling. But I didn't realize that one day, I would become one of his stories. The tragic character in his narrative of control. At first, I thought it was love. He made me feel special, chosen, irreplaceable. But little by little, the compliments turned into criticisms. When I shared my opinions, I was too opinionated. When I stood my ground, I was dramatic. When I cried, I was unstable. It wasn't shouting or anger. It was quiet manipulation. Small corrections that chipped away at who I was. My friends began to drift away. My family grew silent. Somehow everyone around us started seeing me through his words. He would tell them stories, small ones, about my emotional side, my insecurities. And they believed him, because he said it so calmly, so kindly. One night, I found an email on his laptop. It was between him and a woman I didn't know. At first, it looked professional, but the last line said, "I can't wait to see you again, away from her." My heart stopped. When I confronted him, he smiled. Actually smiled. "You're overreacting again," he said, as if betrayal was a misunderstanding. And that was the moment something inside me cracked. Not with rage, but with realization. He wasn't just lying to me, he was rewriting who I was. And I had let him hold the pen for too long. After that night, I started to notice everything. The subtle corrections, the quiet manipulations, the way he spoke for me in public. I began to doubt every memory, every truth. I wasn't angry yet. I was numb. But in that numbness, I found clarity. I began keeping notes, every lie, every twist, every manipulation. I wasn't sure why, maybe I just needed to see it all written down. Maybe I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. And when I looked back at those pages, I realized that Daniel wasn't just manipulating me privately. He was doing it publicly too. He had started a blog called The Honest Heart. Thousands of people followed him, praising his wisdom on love and emotional maturity. He wrote about toxic partners and the importance of staying calm with irrational people. Every post was about me. Disguised under vague phrases and metaphors, he turned my pain into his content. His followers saw him as the kind, patient man dealing with a difficult girlfriend. They had no idea he was the one rewriting reality. That's when I knew. I couldn't confront him directly. If I did, he'd twist it again. I needed a different kind of revenge. Not loud, not violent, but smart, precise. I created a new identity online, an anonymous blog called The Untold Version. It was my voice, my truth. Every post mirrored his, but from my side. When he wrote about dealing with chaos, I wrote about being silenced by calm manipulation. When he wrote about honesty, I wrote about truth turned into a weapon. At first, no one noticed. But slowly, readers began connecting the dots. They started asking questions in his comments. Why does this sound like someone else's story? Is there another side to this? Meanwhile, I played my part perfectly. I acted normal, calm, even affectionate. Because that's what he expected. The more he believed he still had control, the more room I had to work. Every lie he told became content for me. Every argument became a lesson. And slowly, people began to see the pattern. The cracks in his perfect facade started to show. Then one day I received an email from one of his editors. She said she had been following both blogs and wanted to know my side. I hesitated, but something told me to trust her. I sent her everything, screenshots, messages, recordings. She didn't reply for a few days, and I started to doubt myself again. But then, the article came out. It was titled, When the Writer Becomes the Story. It didn't name him directly, but everyone knew. It described his tactics, his manipulation, his fake online persona. Within hours, his image began to fall apart. People who had once worshipped him began turning on him. Sponsors pulled out. Followers demanded answers. That night, he came home furious. His hands shook as he threw his phone on the table. "Did you do this?" he yelled. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, not as the man I loved, but as the man who tried to erase me. "You always said I was dramatic," I said quietly. "Turns out, I just needed the right audience. For a moment, he looked broken. Not because he was sorry, but because he had lost control. His words didn't work anymore. His calm tone couldn't save him. The story he built, piece by piece, was finally crumbling, and I was the one holding the truth. He tried to apologize, to cry, to make me feel guilty. But I had already learned tears are just another form of manipulation when they come from someone who only cries for himself. The article went viral. Other people started speaking up, former coworkers, ex-girlfriends, even old friends. They all had similar stories. Daniel's reputation collapsed under the weight of his own lies. He disappeared from the internet, from public life, from everything he once used to define himself. I thought I'd feel satisfaction watching it happen. But I didn't. I felt peace. Because my revenge wasn't about destroying him. It was about reclaiming myself, about telling my story with my own voice. I started sharing what I had learned. How manipulation hides behind charm, how silence keeps abusers powerful, and how truth can become the sharpest weapon of all. People began reaching out, sharing their own experiences. My pain had turned into something meaningful, something that gave others hope. Daniel's name faded with time. Mine didn't. For once, I wasn't the edited character in someone else's script. I was the author of my own ending. And as I published my final post, I didn't feel anger or revenge. I felt freedom. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't to destroy their world. It's to build yours, stronger, louder, and finally, untold no more.